Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes, that you find some inspiration along the way. It is the middle of July, year 2021, and this is episode 64. If you are new here, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. Well, today we are finally getting some rain. It has been a long time. We're used to having much more rain than we are having this year. And because it's raining, it's super dark, so I have lights on. I apologize for any weird shadows. I think the coloring of the yarns and stuff that I show you will probably still show up okay. But again, yes, no natural light here today. Otherwise, it'll just all be in the dark. But yes, we are very, very thankful for the rain. In the beginning of this episode, I will have shared with you some footage of our garden and a mini field trip we took to the Arboretum again. So you'll see blooms from there, a beautiful monarch butterfly. As far as our garden goes, we have some eggplant and zucchini growing. So that's really exciting. But before I get into that part, I wanted to say that links to things that I mentioned, like businesses, patterns, will be in the description box below. I will also be including my project pages that are on Ravelry, but that will be in a separate section that's distinctly marked that those are Ravelry project pages. And yeah, my videos are all fully captioned, but when the video is uploaded, the closed captioning may not be ready yet, just due to some days that YouTube takes to upload its automatic captions that I then go in and edit for accuracy. So I think that's it. Today I have two finished projects to share with you that are both socks, and then I think I have like 4 works in progress to share with you. One of them, I don't think, oh no, maybe 2 of them, or one of them. Oh, I don't remember now. I don't think that I've shown you since the last time I've been on here, and it's been about 2 weeks. So yes, I've been busy casting on a lot of stuff, and I have a lot more things that I do want to cast on that I'm going to hold off until I finish a couple of things. So now that I've kind of given you a summary of what to expect in this episode, I'm going to go back to what I had mentioned earlier about some of the things in the intro vlog part of this episode. I wanted to talk about the zucchinis. Yes. So the kids and I learned some new things about zucchinis this month. We learned that the male zucchini flowers blossom first and the female ones come later, and to tell the difference between the two, the shape of them, like on the inside and at like the part where it joins the rest of the plant, also is different. I'll include a link that describes all those differences much better than I can in the description box below in case you're interested. But the article that I read, and several of them, say that if you're going to cut any for eating, cut the male blooms, because the zucchini, vegetable part of it comes from the female flowers. So if you cut all your female flowers, then you won't have any zucchini to eat. You also don't want to cut all your male flowers either, because then there will be nothing like pollinating and stuff. So anyway, so that was fun. And we didn't cut all of them. We just cut maybe a dozen or so. And then I stuffed it with chard that I cut from the garden that I sauteed with garlic, and then I mixed that with cream cheese because I didn't have goat cheese, and I put in a little salt and pepper, and then I stuffed those blossoms, and then I put them on a wire rack that was on top of a baking pan, I don't know why, sheet pan? Put on a baking pan, and then I put that in the oven, convection, 425 degrees Fahrenheit, for I think about 20 minutes or so, just until the outside looks like it was starting brown. And it was so good. Like each one was like the size of something that you could just pop in your mouth, like kind of shove in your mouth, but oh, it was so good. So, that's what I wanted to mention about that. I think there's a loaf of bread in the intro too. I made no-knead bread again, but this time I added some whole wheat flour instead of using all bread flour. And I added in dried cranberries and cheddar, grated cheddar cheese, and that was so good. So good. I baked it on a day that it was a lot cooler. I think in the morning it was like maybe high 50s or something like that. So I felt okay turning on the oven versus like a 90-degree day. So yeah, I think that was it for that. Oh, one more thing that I made. I made a peach custard. I think the recipe I took it from says it's a pear custard pie, but I'm not sure it's really a pie. I mean, there's no crust, and I know there's crustless pies, but I feel like crustless pies are in a whole nother category on their own. Let me know in the comments below what you think about pies that have and don't have crust. Like, is it still called a pie if there's no crust? It's just called a crustless pie? Anyway, so I didn't have the pears, so I used peaches, and it was delicious. So there was like some custardy part on the bottom, but it's baked. And then we had it with peach ice cream. I didn't make that ice cream. It was Tillamook ice cream, and oh, so good. I feel like peaches are like the summer fruit. I didn't pick the peaches either. We bought them like from a grocery store, but so good, so good. Okay, now that we're all drooling, I'm gonna move on into the finished projects section. All right, so let's talk about some socks. I have 2 pairs of shorty socks. Now, is it shorty with an IE or shorty with a Y? I've been thinking a lot about this, which I know it seems silly to spend so much time thinking about something like this, but I was thinking that maybe if it's singular, it's with a Y, and then if it's plural, then it's an IES. I mean, you can still use it as singular as an IE, just no S, right? But I think that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to use the Y, S-H-O-R-T-Y, as the singular version, and if it's plural, then it's IES. I don't know why I just told you all that, but yeah. So here are my summer solstice shorties. Let me put them on a sock blocker here. I'll just do one at a time. It's easier to talk about it. So the yarn I used is dyed by Nakia of Wild Star Fibers. I don't have the ball band here, but and then the hot pink is Vice by dyed by Sarah of Traveling Yarn, and oh sorry, the main color here by Nakia is called X Factor, and I absolutely love how it's striped. Like, this is super cool. If I have a picture of the full skein, just so you can see what it looked like before I wound it into a cake and before I knit it up, I will put it up on the screen here. Oh, I suppose now's a good time to mention that I will put things on the screen. So if you're like doing other things or looking down at whatever you're doing, you might miss some things on the screen. I will try to point out when I will be putting something on the screen so you kind of have a heads up on when to look up. But, oh, and if I like say something that's wrong, then I won't give you a heads up because I wouldn't have caught myself on something that was wrong at the time, but then I'll also note that on the screen here too. So I did a peekaboo cuff for the socks, and I uploaded a little tutorial here on my channel on how I do these cuffs. It's nothing new. I'm not inventing something new. It's a fold over cuff that I knit the live stitches to the cast on stitches to create this fold over. I do give you all the numbers that I use so that the contrast color on the inside peeks out over the top. So feel free to check that out. I will link it here up on the screen on the top corner here. And I love how this turned out. The striping here, you end up with this pooling of this indigo blue in between this micro striping of this light pink and plummy purple. I don't know how these indie dyers do it, but it's just so much fun to knit up. It's like a surprise. The variegated yarns knit up like a surprise, and I love it. I did a shadow wrap heel, and that is from Denise of Earth Tones Girls Socksploration Shadow Wrap Heel pattern. I test knit this pattern for her back in, I think, April. And I believe I've knit like 5 or 6 pairs of socks using this heel since then. And I just really enjoy it. It knits up fast. And Like, and when I say fast, I mean like compared to a heel flap and gusset, but when you're doing a heel flap and gusset, you're also knitting part of the foot as you're decreasing for the gusset. So, I mean, you're making progress for that too, whereas this, you're just knitting the pocket for the heel, but I still think it's faster. Plus, I can do it without a pattern. I don't need to know where to turn, like for a heel turn in a heel flap and gusset. Yeah, it's really easy to memorize, and it's adaptable to different stitch count circumferences. Yeah, I love it. And look how it did, I'll take it off the blocker here. Look how there's this like bullseye effect on the heel. How cool is that? I just love it. And it's super comfortable. I mean, that's the part that really matters, because socks are functional art, and if it doesn't fit, then I guess I would just look at it. I don't know. So let me tell you specifics on this. I wear a US 7 women's shoe. My foot length is 9 1/4 inches, foot circumference 8 inches. And what I did with this is I knit it cuff down. I cast on 60 stitches using Old Norwegian cast on with the contrast color. I knit 16 rounds, then I cut the contrast color, joined the main color, knit 12 rounds in the main color. Then I folded the wrong sides together and knit 1 round with the live stitches and the cast on stitches. Again, if you want to learn how I do that, then refer to the video on the Peekaboo Cuff tutorial. Then for the leg, I did stockinette for 20 rounds. I put in the shadow wrap heel, continued my foot. I did 70 rounds for the foot, which gave me 7 1/2 inches from the back of the heel. Then I joined for my toe. I knit 6 rounds using the contrast color before starting my decrease rounds, which decreased by 4 stitches, alternating the decrease round with a knit even round, until I got to 18 stitches for the instep, 18 stitches for the sole. Then I did only decrease rounds until I got to 10 stitches on top, 10 stitches on the bottom, Kitchenered it together. My toe ended up being 1 3/4 inches, and my total sock came out to be 9 1/4 for the foot length, which is my foot length. And then my sock width ended up being 7 inches, giving me 1 inch of negative ease, which is what I like. Yeah, it's really comfortable. I think my gauge blocked ended up being about 8 1/2 stitches per inch with this yarn. So I totally forgot to tell you the fiber content of the yarn. The contrast color Vice, that is a 75/25 superwash merino nylon that comes in 463 yards for 100 grams, so that's a light fingering. And then the main color is an 85/15 superwash merino nylon, 437 yards for 100 grams, so a little bit, slightly plumper than the contrast color. But yeah, I ended up using, let's see, I'm looking at my notes here. So I ended up using 12 grams of the contrast color for the whole pair. And then I ended up using about 41 grams of the main color for the pair. So in total, it was about 52 grams for a pair of these short socks. What I like about this cuff is because it's double the fabric here, it's really comfortable around my ankles. Like, it hugs my ankles well without it sliding down. I really like this length of the, I guess, leg, even though it's a really short leg. And they're the perfect summer socks. I really like this colorway because it reminded me of like late summer nights when the sky is turning indigo but fading with that pink, and the fireflies come out, and yeah, I love these. So this next pair of socks I'd like to share with you, I knit as part of Chantel's Mud Punch Knit Along. Mud Punch is her yarn dyeing company, and I have several little balls of this yarn remaining from longer socks that I have knit up like over the winter and the fall, and so I wanted to knit a bunch of shorties. Now this is the first pair. I've not started a second one yet. I think I started with the one that had the least amount of self-striping yarn first, so that I could see how far that yardage would take me. So I used US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles. Oh, I also used US 1 on my last pair of socks. I think I forgot to say that. Sorry. So here I have the Mud Punch self-striping socks, and they are so fun. I love them. I knit these cuff down, And I started with 13-gram balls, so two 13 grams, 26 grams total of this self-striping yarn. And it perfectly has 2 repeats of the 4-color striping sequence, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, because the Mud Punch yarn, it's an 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. That's 385 yards for 110 grams. I wanted to match it with a similar weight yarn, so I used Knit Picks Hawthorne Fingering, and that comes in an 80% superwash Highland wool, 20% nylon, and 357 yards for 100 grams. So they both come out to be about 3.5 yards per gram. So what I did was I did an old Norwegian cast on of 56 stitches with this solid. It's called Daphne. And then I did 15 rounds of 2x2 ribbing. Then I knit a leg of 5 rounds. So I wanted to try out like a really short sock. I did the shadow wrap heel. And then after I finished the shadow wrap heel, I knit a few more rounds with the solid before starting the foot. I ended up knitting 66 rounds, which is when the yarn ran out. And I did weigh my yarn kind of, I guess, with each stripe to see how much farther I would get, just to kind of have an idea. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. So when I finished, it was time for the toe. And then I joined the contrast color again for the toe, knit 3 rounds before starting my decrease rounds, alternating with the knit even rounds. I did that until I had 20 stitches on top, 20 stitches on bottom. Then I decreased every round until I had 6 on top, 6 on bottom, so 12 stitches total, and then I Kitchenered that together. And yeah, it turned out really, really fun. So I ended up using about 21 grams of the solid tonal color and then all 26 grams of the self-striping. So in total, that's about 47 grams of, it's a heavier fingering weight yarn for this pair of short socks. And I wore them around to see how comfortable they would be, like if they were sliding around at all, and I am happy to say that they are not sliding, they are not slipping, I'm not constantly pulling on my socks. They're really comfortable and fun to wear. So, yay! On to works in progress. I think since we're on the topic of socks, I'll just continue with socks right now. And then the next 3 are both tops. So these pair of socks are housed in a project bag that I sewed. It is a patchwork project bag. So in this one, I am using the Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad yarn, and that is a monthly yarn subscription that I am doing for this year. It is my first time doing this yarn subscription, and I am not disappointed. It is so much fun. There are different yarn bases that she rotates through. I believe it's 3 different yarn bases, so then in order it'll just keep rotating, and it is a sock set. And I love socks, so it works out really well for me. So I started these. Aren't they super fun? Oh, I love them. They're so cute. So I'm doing short socks again. I'm doing my peekaboo cuff again. And this is the dusty kind of a clay color. Clay, yeah, I think it's more of a like a peachy clay color. Is July's yarn, and so is this cream with the indigo speckling, and then this seafoam green is from April, April's mini. So what I am doing is doing the fold over cuff, a short leg, and striping, and then doing like a mini stripe of this cream color in between, and that is what I knit the shadow wrap heel out of, and I am just continuing all the way down. Let me find my notes on that here. I kind of debated like how much detail to go into each of these works in progress that I'm about to show you, because when I share like the finished project with you later, I don't want to like repeat myself on everything because, well, then I'm repeating myself on all of the information. So I don't know, maybe I won't go into super detail on exactly what I'm doing and just kind of show you what I am working on. And that'll go for these other works in progress too. And then when it gets to the point of sharing the finished project with you, then I'll go through like all of the details and modifications and whatever. Because I may also like change things up between now and then for any of these things. Well, probably not these socks, but for the other stuff. So anyway, that's where I'm at with my thinking on that. A lot of thinking out loud here today. Yes, but anyway, I love how these socks are knitting up. I think they're really fun. I wanted to knit another pair of striping socks, but I hadn't decided exactly what I wanted to do, and so I just made up my own thing. I do have the second one cast on. I'm not as far on it as this one. I just kind of wanted to see how the vision of what I saw in my head would play out on these socks. So I like how they're striping. I think it's really fun. And these are knit on US 1 2.25 millimeter 9-inch circulars, which are my preferred method for knitting, I think, like stockinette socks. I don't know always about some patterned socks. I may not always like just the way my hands move with the 9-inch circulars. Like Magic Loop I like too, which can be kind of nice if you have a pattern that's different on the front versus like the back of the leg, or the front, the top of the foot, and versus the bottom of the foot, because then it automatically separates them in half for you. But then if there's a pattern that goes all the way around and like the halfway point is going to be in the middle of some repeat, I find that really annoying. So that's just me. So then a 9-inch circular is really easy to like go around and around. And then with a stockinette pattern, I just feel like it's quicker because I don't have to think or shift a cable or anything. Like I just keep going and going and going. And then if I have to stop or put it down because the kids need something, like it's really easy to do that. So that is my preferred method. Okay, so moving on to the next thing then. We're going to talk about a project that is in a wonderful Shop Knitting Nelly bag sewn by Morgan. I just love this bag so much. All the moody purples and grays and the fox here and the tree. Oh, I just love it. So this bag is housing my Rocket Tee by Tanis Lavelli of Tanis Fiber Arts. And I am knitting this up using yarns by Sweet Georgia. And it is their mohair silk sock. And mine are knit up in the colors Lady Gray and Birch. The mohair silk sock is a 50% superwash merino, 15% silk, 15% mohair, 20% nylon at 437 yards for 100 grams. Here is the lavender, that is Lady Gray. And here is the kind of a silvery taupe color. This is Birch. So I like how subtle the striping is coming out. I'm at a point here where I have joined in the round, because you do start out knitting it flat so you can get this lovely V-neck. I have done the edging on the neckline and on the sleeves. It is a short-sleeved tee. And I did make some changes. So instead of doing the eyelet detail along the raglan and along the side of the body, I decided not to do that, just out of personal preference. So I replaced the eyelet increases with make one left, make one right. And I think they came out very clean and tidy. And then in the body, I'm just knitting stockinette round and round and just not doing a detail down the side of the body. One thing that I have kind of gone back and fixed already is when I did my neckline initially, and I put the body onto a longer cord to try it on, I felt like the V-neck was way too big, which meant when I block it, it'll be even bigger, and it just wasn't something I was comfortable with, and I didn't want it to be something that I always had to wear like a tank top or camisole underneath. I wanted it to have the option of wearing it on its own. So then the benefit of picking up stitches for a neckline is I can just rip that whole edging out. I don't have to like worry about live stitches. So I just pulled that entire edging out. Let me just double check if she says on her pattern page that what it is so that I can stop trying to avoid it. I don't like giving away more information than what a designer has put on their like what do you call it, like the project info page that anybody can access before purchasing the pattern. So let me just double check here. Okay, she does say there's an I-cord edging, so I will stop trying to avoid saying that there's an I-cord edging. Anyway, so there is an I-cord edging along the neckline and the sleeves, and so based on the number of stitches she recommends picking up for the size that I am knitting, it was just way too big. So I picked up less stitches the second time around, and I used a smaller needle size. So the entire sweater is, I think, recommended to knit on US 5s or 3.75 millimeter needles for a gauge of 24 stitches by 32 rows for 4 inches of stockinette, and that's in the round and flat. And I am knitting size 2, which gives a finished circumference of 35 inches, giving me 3 inches of positive ease. And so I am knitting most of it with a recommended needle size of US 5. But for the edging on the sleeves, I went down to, I believe, US 4. Let me find my notes here so I can tell you correctly. Yes, I'm doing US 4 for the bind off on the sleeves, and then for the neckline I actually am using, or I used US 2.5. So I picked up with a US 3 16-inch circular needles because that's what I had. I don't think I had a 2.5. And then I used a US 2.5 double pointed needle and did the I-cord bind off with that. Now the reason I the second time around did that was because by then I had already done the bind off on my Darren tee, which I will show you next. So then I kind of got an estimate of how many stitches I picked up for that one, even though that one's a scoop neck and this one's a V-neck, but just to give myself a better idea of where I was at with like the opening of the neckline. So that's how I was able to compare with that. And so that's how I decided what needle sizes to try the second time. Yeah, so then I put it on again and it fits really well. Right now I have the bottom on a large cord with stoppers at the end so that I could try it on. But I am really happy with how this neckline is now. It's fitting well. Oh, and also my problem, not a problem, but it was bothering me. The I-cord in the back, when I had more stitches, it was flipping, like kind of like a rolled hem would be. And I know blocking will fix some of that, but over time as I wear it, it would probably still flip again, and I just didn't like that. So with fewer stitches and it being a little tighter, I don't think it's gonna flip. And just with how it sits on my neck and without me like potentially like pulling it up all the time, I think it'll sit much flatter against the back of my neck. So you can see that bind off. It looks very neat and tidy. And with the silk content in this too, I think it's going to drape really nicely. So I cannot wait to finish this. I'm so excited. I'm giving myself a goal of a stripe a day so that, I don't know, it's just kind of a nice mini goal to have. I don't know if you set mini goals for your projects, but I mean, they're arbitrary goals. I don't have like an actual timeline for this. It's just something that's a motivator too. So I am looking forward to getting this done. I don't know, how much longer do I have to go? I haven't really measured. I'm not super far into the body, but pretty excited about this. Next up is the Darren tee. It is in another quilt block patchwork bag that I sewed. I think the last time I talked about this was maybe 2 episodes ago, so it may be almost a month or something, but I love this bag. The yellow theme, the gardening theme, The back and the bottom are kind of an unbleached canvas. And this is from Jacqueline C. Slack's Embody collection. And I am knitting the Darren tee from it. Let me find my notes on that. So I'm knitting the second size for a finished circumference of I think 35¼ inches, which again gives me about 3¼ inches of positive ease. Gauge is 24 stitches by 32 rounds, 4 inches stockinette blocked. It is knit on US 5, 3.75mm needles, using sport weight yarn. I am using Malabrigo Sucero in the colorways Frank Ochre and Sunset. This yarn is 25% linen, 25% merino, and 50% silk. I used up pretty much every last yard of the Sunset color, which is in this golden orange. Isn't that beautiful? It's glowing. And then I was planning on striping before, but just with the way the shaping is, it is top down, but there's tons of shaping, which also means there's a lot of ends, but it's worth it for the right fit. And there's a lot of short rows and stuff going on with that. I'll stand up a little to kind of show you. It's a big scoop neck, which I have also adjusted to make it smaller. And I've also adjusted the sleeves a little bit. This ribbing section here, I am only doing half of what it's written in the pattern, just because I am playing Yarn Chicken. But then once I finished all the shaping and stuff, I used up all the yarn, the orange yarn, and joined my second color, Frank Ochre, in this beautiful golden yellow. And I really like the color block happening here. So I still have the remaining few yards of the orange here with a safety pin on the back, just in case I decide to rip out the neckline and do it again if it doesn't feel like it fits right. But I think I should be good. I have these 2 progress keepers on the shoulder seams, and that was to help me count more evenly when I was picking up stitches to do the I-cord bind off. So I haven't taken them off yet, just in case I decide to redo it, but that's where I'm at with this. I love how it's turning out, and yeah, hopefully this will be done before summer's over, in addition to my rocket tee, because they are summer tees and I'd like to wear them. Not that I can't wear them in the fall, I absolutely can wear them in the fall, but I feel like this orangey yellow color is much more summer than fall. Anyway, probably doesn't really matter, but I would really like to wear it soon. So I am knitting a body length that's somewhere between the cropped and the full length, because that's what I have for the yardage. I think if I was knitting the crop length, I would already be starting the ribbing section, but I feel like that's going to be way too short than I want for this top. So I'm going to keep going and see where I end up. And the ribbing for the bottom, I'll probably also do half of what is called for in the pattern, just to match the sleeves, or I'm just going to knit until I run out of yarn. So that's probably more likely what I'm going to do, so that I use up every last yard. That is all I'm going to say about this one, because yeah, I'm not sure what else there is to say, but I am enjoying it. I am enjoying knitting with this yarn as well. I had mentioned that the orange, when I was knitting with the orange, it was rubbing off on my fingers. I haven't really noticed it with the golden color. I mean, it could still be rubbing off on my fingers, but because it's lighter, I don't see it, or it's just not rubbing off. So who knows? I don't know if anyone else has knit with this yarn and noticed similar things with the dye or color rubbing off on their fingers, but I mean, it washes out. It's really no big deal. It just surprised me with the orange one, because I was like, I didn't eat any Cheetos or Doritos. I don't even have any in the house. Where is this coming from? Last project I want to share with you. I'm actually not going to talk a ton about it because it is a test knit, but I do want to share with you just a little bit. It is in a project bag that I sewed, I think last year, and I love it. It reminds me of like woodblock prints, and there's poppies on it, and little berries, and leaves, and I love the energy of it. It makes me feel really happy. So let me get to my page on this. So this is a Tiffany linen pattern. I test a lot of patterns for Tiff. I like her style, and I like supporting other BIPOC makers, and yeah, so when this pullover, when she put like a testing call for this pullover, I saw it and then I read the description for it and I was like, yes, I really want to knit that. So I am using Progress Keepers by Yura of Knit Oop Studio, and she had this, oopsies, she had this pomegranate set, and well, I don't know how well you can see it there. So I am knitting the second size for a finished bust circumference of 36.5 inches, and that'll give me 4.5 inches of positive ease. And I'm going down a needle size as I typically do to get gauge with Tiff's patterns. And this is a top-down circular yoke, which I love. I feel like that's, for how I process things, I don't want to say quickest, but like maybe the smoothest way for me to process like a sweater construction. Like I love raglans, but I need to create like a table for each round of increases that has it separated out for front versus sleeves versus back stitches, and I check every single increase round to make sure I'm at the right number of stitches, because it would be super annoying if like my left sleeve ended up, you know, 10 stitches shorter than my right sleeve, or the front and the back didn't line up. It would just really bother me and be really annoying. Whereas with a circular yoke, I feel like if you're off by 1 stitch, it's easier to fix. Like you could just throw an extra one in there, or it's just easier for me to spot, I guess, without having like a whole table of stitches written out, stitch counts written out for every part of the raglan yoke. Raglan yoke? Is it still called a yoke if it's raglan? Oh, well, I don't know. Anyway, here it is. Isn't it beautiful? It's got a beautiful colorwork detail on top that had repeats that I could follow easily, I guess. And I just love how it's turning out. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, here is one of the Progress Keepers. An open pomegranate. And the pomegranate seed here. So I am knitting mine using the Yarn Collective Fleurville 4-ply in Poppy, because this is the Wild Poppy pullover. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it's the Wild Poppy pullover. And the hashtag, I think, is Wild Poppy pullover. So if you want to see what some of the other test knitters are knitting up in their color combinations. So I have this like kind of a dusty, mauvey, purpley color for my contrast color, and that is Peony. And then Poppy is this variegated, kind of a dusty, well, I don't know what you call it, like a dusty terracotta coral combination. And it is kind of variegated, so not variegated, but like maybe super tonal. So I am alternating skeins and doing it the helical method in the body. That's why you see 2 yarns sticking out here. I'll show you what the yarn looks like caked up. Here you go. Isn't this color so beautiful? This is perfect for fall, but really I'm kind of a fall year-round gal, so it's perfect for any time. She has the pattern written for a cropped or a full length and different sleeve lengths, so I'm really excited about that. I'm already thinking about a summer color combo to knit for next year, but we shall see. And I think that's all I'm going to say about that one. But I am really enjoying it. It is fingering weight and it is flying because it is on slightly bigger needles. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. That's all I'm going to say about that. Stay tuned. Okay, so that was a lot of stuff. I don't think I have anything else to add other than I finished the book Pachinko by Minjin Lee, and it was really good. And when I finished it, I couldn't sleep that night. I had like all these different feelings and all these like jumbled thoughts, and I don't know. It was a really good read. Really good read. It's sad, but there's happy parts in it. You'll laugh, you'll cry. Well, I don't know about you, Will, but I did. It was just a really good book. I talked about it more, I don't remember if it was in the last episode or the previous episode, so if you are interested in hearing more about that, go back to it. I will put a link here on the screen to whichever episode that I talked about it, and I can't remember right now. But yes, it's a really good read. Highly recommend. It is a longer book. I don't know how many pages it is, but maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick, which may not be super long for some of you, but it did take me a few library, read-checkout to get through all of it. Not because it was a drag or a long read. It's just a bigger book, that's all. Yeah, so I think that is it for today. I don't know when I'm hopping back on here. It might be a couple of weeks. But yeah, I hope you are doing really well. I hope you are enjoying your summer or your winter, depending on which hemisphere you are in, and that you take care. So, cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time.